Emmanuel Shachaf, Identity, the Quest for Israel's Future. Hello to you.
Hello, hello.
What is happening to us? People are not really revealing or talking about the essence of the conflict.
They're not talking about the conflict. They're not talking about the essence. They're not talking about. They're talking about individual microscopic activities, events. They're not talking about the big picture. Nobody's putting this all together, and this is very, very destructive because everybody is invested in individual events. There's a demonstration against the Nakba, in favor of the Nakba, and one against the Nakba, and there is an event where the court decides makes a stupid decisions which has consequences for the Temple Mount, and all kinds of smaller events which drive people's nerves up. But nobody makes the connections. Nobody says this is all connected to the conflict. So this is the conflict. We have to deal with the conflict.
Please connect the dots. You're saying everything has to do with the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians.
Yes.
And
literally everything that's happening in Israel today on the negative side definitely is connected to the conflict. If it's violence of Arabs against Jews, connected to the conflict. If it's this systematic discrimination of Arabs along the history of Israel, that's part of the conflict. If it's violence of Arabs against Arabs, that's connected to the conflict. If it's violence against Jews in the diaspora, that's connected to the conflict. If it's friction between Jews in Israel and Jews in the diaspora, that's connected to the conflict. Everything, all these things that are happening are connected to the conflict. And the government of Israel, the politicians of Israel, the public of Israel, and the media of Israel simply don't relate to it as part of the conflict. They just don't ignore the conflict.
You're saying it's kind of a denial?
It's complete denial. Complete and total denial and lack of awareness. It's just not there. I mean, what's the big deal asking a politician at the end of every interview, and what about the conflict, or what about resolution of the conflict? It's not happening. Nobody is being asked. And you should think that, this is kind of important, but no, it's not. Every individual event is looked at as an individual event. There's an act of Palestinian terror. That's an act of Palestinian terror. There's an act of violence of Arabs against Jews in a mixed city. That's an act of violence against Jews in a mixed city. There's a court decision against or in favor of Jews who are praying on the Temple Mount. That's a decision by the court. Nothing has to do with the conflict. It's all individual things. Nobody's making the connections, and we're going to have a bad time with this.
When you're saying we're going to have a bad time, you're saying that practically it's something that endangers the state of Israel?
We're on the Titanic. We're going into icebergs. Every 10, 15 minutes we were running into an iceberg. Everything is clear. It's clear that we're going to run into another iceberg, and it's just a matter of time until we get to the big iceberg. And nobody's doing anything. We're all dancing. The orchestra is playing, and that's all.
What kind of big iceberg are you seeing that it's down there? No one talks about it. But
well, first of all, we could have another Intifada. We could have another Guardian of the Wall event like it happened about a year ago. Mm-hmm. So these two things can happen. None of these events by themselves are going to be catastrophic for the state of Israel. They're just going to be minor disasters, or bigger or smaller. They're going to be. The problem is that when it rains, it pours. Sometimes these things happen together. And the economic situation isn't too great. If that impacts together, that can make a large impact and can make a major change to the way we live. Okay, I'm not saying it's not apocalypse, but it's not the apocalypse, but it's something which can make a major impact on our way of life.
What do you think about the withdrawal and then coming back of the member of the Knesset, Zorbi? That she was leaving and then she came back, and everything even the discussion about it gets so violent.
That's part of the conflict. Part of the conflict is the fact that it's very, very difficult to maintain a government with Jews and Arabs together. the fact that there's such a strong attacks against the participation of Arabs and the particular requirements, the things they ask for, is an expression of the conflict. Okay, and where I think Israel is very lucky that she changed her mind and understood that it's very important for her to continue maintaining the government, because the government is doing some things good, but in the end, the conflict is still out there and is waiting to be dealt with.
So you're saying that there is not only that the conflict is there and no one is asking about it, no one is asking about hope. It's like a search engine that no one even is looking for the hope.
It was not putting, the conflict is not put into the search engine. It's just not being dealt with. It's being ignored, and it's strange. Okay, to put it mildly, it's more than strange. There's nobody out there, not the media, the public, almost not at all. Definitely not the politicians. Definitely not the government. Definitely not the prime minister. Okay, it's just not happening.
And the leaders of the left-wing parties?
The leaders of the left-wing party are looking for ways how to advance some amorphous peace. They don't have a plan. They don't have. They don't have a lot of support. They don't want to shake up the government. So this is a very, very bad time for Israel to even think about resolving our problems. We're just not dealing with them.
Well, people are talking right now about the Palestinian flags,
yes,
as something that raises so much hassle. What is your perspective about it?
This is ridiculous. This is part of the problem that, after years and years and years, the weeks of the remembering the Nakba, which is the original traumatic event in the Palestinian history, there's always demonstrations with Palestinian flags. And it's legal to raise Palestinian flags in Israel. There's nothing illegal about it. Nevertheless, every single time it happens, it's a big fuss, as if it does, if it threatens Israel's very existence to have people running around here with Palestinian flags for 2 hours once a year, okay, or at different demonstrations. It's more than that. The state of Israel is so sensitive about events, okay, that which are connected to the Palestinian nationality, that it as if it's if the state doesn't exist yet.
And you're saying that the state doesn't exist, even the decision about Kfar Qasim.
Yes, there was a ridiculous decision. There was a court case. A historian wanted to release some documents about an event that happened in 1956. In the framework of in the event, 47 Palestinians were killed by the Israeli army. And this event is well documented. It's well known. There's nothing about it that is not known to the public, almost. And a court gave a decision regarding the release of the documents, but refused to release what the decision was. Okay, so we're in a ridiculous. This is 2022. Okay, the event was in 1956. The documents were published or written by a court 60, 70 years ago.
As part of an academic research.
And part of an academic research wanted to release them, and the court now says, we got to a decision, but we're not going to tell you what the decision is. Come on.
Any upside that you would like to reflect?
I think the most positive thing that happened this week was the fact that the government did not fall, that Rina Zouabi returned to the Knesset, and it'll be possible to maintain a joint Jewish-Palestinian government for several more years, hopefully.
Looking for the quest for Israel's future, one message that you would like to say for the citizens that are living on this Titanic?
Get ready. Get ready and do everything in your power to talk to your representatives and to politicians and to media people to speak about the conflict and resolving it.
Because otherwise, hopeless.
Otherwise, we're going to have a lot more trouble, and it's difficult. I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, I'm an optimist by nature, and although pessimists in the end, pessimists are right at one stage, and optimists just have a better time. But we don't know what's going to happen. We have to do better than what we're doing now. I think that's the most important thing.
People that want to be part of this journey of bringing better future to this local Israel, what is your recommendation?
Connect via Facebook to either the Federation Movement or Identity, the Quest for Israel's Future, or to Emmanuel Shachaf at your leisure.
Emmanuel Shachaf, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.